We talked a lot when you came on our show about your curiosity and how that's something that drives you. And I feel like that's the biggest thing you can do to not be a Cidiot, is to come with that spirit of curiosity. Like, hey, I lived in the city. It's different there. Everything's at your disposal 24/7. It's not going to be like that up here in Tivoli or Red Hook. You know, I'm not going to go to the coffee shop at 4 p.m. because it's closed. I'm not going to go to that restaurant on Monday or Tuesday because that's their weekend. But you have that curiosity that drives you to want to get to know not just the area, but really how things work and the people who are doing cool things. You know, you talk to your farmer about her eggs, and you are genuinely interested and curious about people's stories and life experiences in the region. And that's what makes you, despite the trademarked brand, not a Cidiot, is because you came with the spirit of, let me learn. This is different, but I chose to be here, and I'm going to learn everything about it, and I'm going to be really mindful about how I immerse myself into what is culturally different from what I'm used to.
It's a new way of living and I'm trying to get used to it. 1 park coolers, half an ounce of an idiot. Ordered a Manhattan and they call me a Cidiot. At first I hurt my feelings, but it's kinda got a ring to it. When you move to the country, they can tell when you're new to it. I'm looking at a place, but I'm trying to keep fitting in. It takes too long to be a local, so for now I'm a Cidiot.
I'm Matt Zucker, and this is Cidiot, Learning to Live and Love Life in the Hudson Valley. Episode 102, Valley Girls. If you check any podcasting directory, you won't find an official regional podcast category per se, but there are a lot of great regional podcasts. On Good Pods, one of my favorite podcast platforms, which has a community conversation feel, you can create lists. So I created a list of podcasts for rural and country living. On it, I have Cabin Cast out of Wisconsin, Our Farmish Kind of Life, Rural Matters, and of course Catscast, the Catskills Podcast by my buddy and chronogrammy rival, Brett Barry. Well, there are new sheriffs in town. I just found a new regional podcast to add to my list, and yours if you love the Hudson Valley. The Valley Girls Podcast with Jenny and Jennifer is about them getting reacquainted with the Hudson Valley through the people who are here, apparently, including me. We're doing a crossover event, just like I did with Brett back in episode 77, called The Other Best Regional Podcast. Now the Valley Girls interview me on their show, and I interview them here. You can find their show on your podcasting platform of choice or via valleygirlspodcast.com. I'll put a link in the show notes. This episode, we compliment Brett Barry and his handsome voice. We talk about why they started their show, telling the Hudson Valley story one character at a time. They give a bit of advice for Cidiots about treating people right. We also play the hilarious Hudson Valley geography game I love, and we end with their go-to spots, which include Mills Mansion and swimming holes. Good timing for that. Okay, let's talk. Hi, Jen. Hi, Jenny.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on Cidiot.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, I love these cross promotion type crossover type things. I did with Brett Barry last year, and it was a huge hit.
Yeah, you're good at it too, and it was great. That was my introduction to Brett Barry, and now I'm super into his show and his great radio voice.
I know, he's like butter.
Yeah, it's a really fun thing to do.
You said to him, "You have a very handsome voice," and
He
I was
does
like,
have a
"That is
handsome
the
voice."
perfect description. It is a handsome voice." Yeah.
Very handsome voice.
I think we're pretty good too. We're both doing shows about the Hudson Valley from different, vantage points. Me as the naive newcomer, maybe not so new, but still newer than the two of you. So I guess that's where I wanted to start, was to find out from each one of you, what's your relationship to the Hudson Valley? Because I think it's very, very different than mine.
Yeah, actually, so I'm sort of in between the two of you. I'm that kind of guest you were talking about, somebody who's from the Hudson Valley, moved away, and came back. So I grew up in Poughkeepsie, went to college in Albany, which is where we met each other. And I have been living in Texas for 20 years, but I am on my way back full time to the Hudson Valley. So I have that kind of perspective of having been from here and then leaving, and the way that it will just tug at your heart and soul forever, no matter where you are in the world.
Yeah. So I grew up here in the Hudson Valley. I grew up in Hurley, went to school in Kingston, and then, of course, went to Albany where I met Jen. And then after college, moved downstate, lived on Long Island, outside of the city for a while. And then it was, when I grew up here, couldn't wait to get out of the small town, right? Just never thought I'd come back here. But then as I grew up, became a young adult in my young 20s, I kept coming up here a lot, visiting my parents, going up, walking around at the reservoir, going up to the Catskills a lot, and realized like, wow, I can't believe I never wanted to come back here. Now that's all I want to do is come up here every weekend. So knowing that, I was on the cusp of having a family soon, I realized like, this is it. This is where I want to have a family. And so I eventually moved back. And so now I'm back living in Hurley and couldn't be happier. Just love this area so much.
So let's talk about the Valley and let's talk about your show. So tell me about why you started it. You're publishing every week, but like, what's your MO? I mean, my brand and what I'm trying to achieve, but what's your show's about?
Yeah. So when we originally talked about doing a podcast, Jen and I were sort of having some brainstorming sessions. We knew we wanted to start a podcast. We had a couple of ideas, and we very, very quickly went to, we want to talk about the Hudson Valley. There's so many cool things. Even though I have been back to the area for quite some time as an adult, it's rapidly changing. It's constantly changing. And plus there's so many different things here, or things that I never even realized that have been here the whole time. So we really wanted to re-explore this area and discover new things. But also, there's so many different populations of people, whether it's somebody like yourself who's moving up here from the city, people like us who are rediscovering the area as an adult. And we felt like it would be a really great service to highlight different areas, different things to do, see, businesses in the area, like we've talked about, before, about like trails, nature areas, things like that. But what really is very interesting, Jen and I discovered very early on, before our first episode even came out, was that we, from the beginning, were going to be doing interviews. So we were talking to these people and we were interviewing people and realizing like, wow, they have such fascinating stories, right? Not just about what's in the Hudson Valley, but just even their stories, like connecting to who these people are, that it's sort of shifted a little bit. So we are still all about exploring everything there is to see, do, try, eat, and experience in the Hudson Valley. But we do it by talking to the people of the Hudson Valley. Who are the creators? Who are the makers and the doers? All of the unique voices of the Hudson Valley. And as we say in the show, we're telling the Hudson Valley story one episode at a time. So it's sort of evolved into both. We're talking about what there is to do in the Hudson Valley by talking to the people who are making it happen.
How do you find people? How do you decide who to talk to?
I am delusional, and I see people that look really cool that I wish would be our friends. And
based on looks.
No, based on like the vibe. Like I will see like the vibe, and I will reach out. So we just recently interviewed Sari Botten, who's a writer. She's based in Kingston. I've loved her for such a long time, and I just reached out to her on her Substack, and I was like, I have a podcast. Do you want to come on? And she said yes. And then I was like, oh, she said yes. So honestly, we always tease everybody. We just told, we did our interview with DJ Jimmy from Out Loud Hudson Valley, and we said, that you're in for life now. Like this is the Valley Girls Mafia. Like we just look at people who are doing cool stuff that we want to know more about, that we get them to come on our podcast, and then they have to be friends with us forever.
Yeah.
And so that's what it's all about. It's just, the thing for me, the Hudson Valley is the creative people who are doing cool stuff And this is my opportunity to get to know those people and to introduce those people to everybody else in the Hudson Valley.
That is the fun part, actually, when people, you could introduce people to other people, and do you know this person? No, and then you feel like you're on the inside because you did the introduction, or maybe they already know the person and you get better street cred because they're impressed that you knew somebody else. It's cool.
We did for our 10th episode, we did a whole panel discussion, and
how'd that go?
It was so fun, and I think everybody there, when we were getting off, everyone's like, I'm going to follow you all on Instagram now. And so I'm hoping that some really nice connections come out of that. We just had a whole bunch of badass women who are doing super cool, creative and entrepreneurial stuff. And hopefully they have things that grow out of that as well.
Yeah, it's all about the connections. So it's while it is about telling the stories and it is about, discovering things to do. We've had some fascinating people who've written books about places like Bannerman Island, Bannerman Castle, and, things to do in various areas of the Hudson Valley. It's also just about, like we said, connecting people and discovering things. And maybe it's us discovering new people, them discovering new people who are on the podcast. So the connection that we're creating both for ourselves and for the people who are our guests on the podcast, but also our listeners. So sometimes we've made connections from the listeners and the guests, and it's just a really cool experience that we're finding.
Has anything really surprised you? Like, I'm constantly surprised by why eggs taste delicious, or, what's up that road, or anything like that. Are you shocked by anything you've heard or seen, or just what you expected?
I don't think that I've been surprised by anything. So I feel like I'm somebody who has always wanted to be creative, but I don't see myself as a creative person. So for me, the opportunity to pick the brains and peek behind the curtain of creativity with people is fascinating. I will say we recently talked to Danielle Centifonti Davidson, and she has a business called Main Street Business Strategies, but she's also the president of the River Towns Chamber of Commerce. And that's kind of a blind spot area for me in Westchester. I don't know much of Westchester very well at all. She was just rattling off all these great places to walk and eat and see shows. And so, we talked about your curiosity and you just kind of want to know everything and dig into the Hudson Valley. And she was a gold mine of information that I just felt like, okay, I'm getting in the car right now because I'm going to go spend the day in Westchester. So it's really fun just learning new stuff about the area from other people's perspectives.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I don't know that I would use the word surprise, but fascinated. There have been so many just things like I bring up that Bannerman Castle episode. There's just some fascinating things that I learned in that episode about the history of various things. Did you know that at Marist College used to be a famous amusement park in the Hudson Valley? It was the biggest amusement park around here. And then after it was demolished.
It was?
Yes. There's a book written by Barbara and Wes Gotlock called Lost Amusement Parks of the Hudson Valley. And they talk about this. And then at the end of it, they're telling us about it. And they're like, oh, you know where it is? It's where Marist College is now. And we're like, what? Yeah, it was fascinating stuff. So that's just one example of the things learn something new today, just check that off. And I feel like there's that every episode I can say, check another box. There's something that I learned new today.
Now, you two are, since you're both kind of from here and you know the valley, much better than I do, maybe you two could give us some advice. My whole thing is about not to be a cidiot, right? So maybe I should be asking the two of you, what do you think? How can I not be a cidiot?
We talked a lot when you came on our show about your curiosity and how that's something that drives you. And I feel like that's the biggest thing you can do to not be a cidiot is to come with that spirit of curiosity. Hey, I lived in the city. It's different there. Everything's at your disposal 24/7. It's not going to be like that up here in Tivoli or Red Hook. I'm not going to go to the coffee shop at 4 p.m. because it's closed. I'm not going to go to that restaurant on Monday or Tuesday because that's their weekend. But you have that curiosity that drives you to want to get to know not just the area, but really how things work and the people who are doing cool things. You know, you talk to your farmer about her eggs, and you are genuinely interested and curious about people's stories and life experiences in the region. And that's what makes you, despite the trademarked brand, not a Cidiot, is because you came with the spirit of, let me learn. This is different, but I chose to be here, and I'm going to learn everything about it. And I'm going to be really mindful about how I immerse myself into what is culturally different from what I'm used to.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And I think that what comes with that is a lot of respect. You know, it shows a sign of respect for people who have lived here most or all of their lives. And along with that respect, I think that some of that is some people, not all, but some people from the city come up here and expect certain things. So they already come with expectations and a sense of entitlement, which is, this is how we do it in the city. So therefore we're up here and we expect certain things, or we expect things to be done a certain way, whether it's coffee after a certain time or whatever it is. And almost like, I do not necessarily feel this way. My whole family is actually originally from Brooklyn. I was born and raised up here, but every generation before my generation's from Brooklyn. I get it. But a lot of people, like, they feel like a little bit above the country folk, just a little bit above them. So they feel like, well, but we're doing it the right way. Let me teach you country folk how to live. Let me teach you country folk how we do it down in the city. So they sort of bring this air of, you know, we'll show you the right way to do things, which brings its own sense of expectation and entitlement. So, you know, kind of realizing like, nope, actually you're on country territory now. You're in the suburbs, you're in the country, and we do it a little different in here. So I think that sort of goes along with that sense of respect.
Okay, that's cool. So that's more substantial than just don't, you know, the car you drive or wear plaid.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's not really about that. There are plenty of people here who do emulate, you know, like the city fashion or whatever it is. So it's not really so much about the car you drive or the fashion. It's really more about how you treat people, because that's a big part of it up here.
I did buy a pair of overalls, and they are extremely comfortable. And I don't have a lot of places I can wear them, and they are difficult if you have to go to the bathroom. But that said, I get why people do it. I just look ridiculous in it.
All right. Well, obviously now you have to show us a picture of you in your overalls.
Yeah, I'll find one.
Okay.
Brian wears his all the time. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, Brian wears his a lot.
They are cozy.
Maybe another thing we could do, since you folks are experts, is I've only done this a few times with people, but it's the geography game. It's a rapid fire game where I throw out a location in the Hudson Valley, like a town, and you say the first thing that comes to mind. And it helps us get educated about different places around it.
Whew, all right.
Terrifying, but okay. Yeah, we'll try
terrifying.
it.
This is terrifying.
Okay. One of us is very competitive, by the way.
What?
I'm going to say a town, and you just say a word or a phrase. Ready? Rhinebeck.
Dutchess County Fair.
Upstate Film.
Tannersville.
Close to Hunter Mountain. Close to Hunter Mountain. Skiing.
I got nothing.
Catskill.
Main Street.
Jenny's dad's dental practice.
My dad works there. It's true.
Poughkeepsie.
Me.
Yeah, Jen's got to take that one.
Newburgh.
The waterfront.
Storm King.
It's outside of Newburgh, but yeah.
Hurley.
Me.
Jenny.
That's where I live.
Kerhonkson.
Farms.
Geese.
Geese.
Honk.
Okay. Millerton.
Hardy and Sons.
Tea. That's what I was just going to say.
Hudson.
Firefighter Museum.
Ghent.
It's farms again. I got to go with farms again.
Millbrook.
Winery.
Beacon.
Main Street
Dia.
and Dia.
Ellenville.
Sam's Point.
Gabby's Restaurant.
What's Sam's Point?
That's the place that we were telling you about with the ice caves and the hiking.
Oh, right. Sam's Point.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, cool. And one last one. Hyde Park.
Vanderbilt.
So Vanderbilt is a place that everybody in the Hudson Valley needs to go. It is the best. It's our favorite. And they have beautiful Italian gardens. And if you go at the right time, and you can see the tours of the mansion and beautiful views of the river and the Catskills. But Vanderbilt Mansion, when Jen and I met in freshman year at University of Albany, one of the first things we bonded about is our love of Vanderbilt Mansion. So it's our beautiful favorite place, and it just happens to be something we bonded about. So yeah, everybody needs to go there.
It's an Italian garden, and you can run around and you can pretend that you're Lucy Honeychurch from A Room with a View.
Exactly. I was going to say that.
Through the rose gardens. Yeah.
It's so amazing.
I feel like Lucy Honeychurch. One other thing I often ask people is, and I think you'll have a unique view on this too, is what their secret go-to place is. So this can't be your typical Vanderbilt place or places we may have heard of, but tell me something we don't know about where to go to in the Hudson Valley that might be special. You know, you want a moment of zen to get away from it all. You need something new to justify why you moved up here. Nothing's open on Mondays. Just what's a really good go-to place?
Well, if we do, then it's not a secret anymore. But so I went to high school in Hyde Park. I graduated from FDR High School. And so I had a lot of Vanderbilt time, but also there's another historic mansion just a little farther north along the river called Mills. And so the riverfront at Mills is just as beautiful, just as scenic. There's lots of kind of little private nook areas. It may or may not have been a makeout spot for high school, but that's a beautiful little riverfront park that gets much less of the foot traffic than Vanderbilt.
And yeah, Mills Mansion, also known as Stottsburg, is also special because you can get access to the river because they were so rich, the railroad tracks run behind the house. So you can get closer to the water. So it's actually a very unique place, I think.
Yeah. Plus you can make out there if you want to.
And you can make out there.
Or so I've heard.
Jenny, what's yours?
Of course. So I would say it's not going to be a specific spot, but there's numerous spots that would be the swimming holes of the Hudson Valley. So there are some in the Shawangunk area, around New Paltz, Minnewaska, Mohonk area. There's a few swimming holes. I'll say as secret as they are, quote unquote secret, if you Google them now, you can pretty much find them. I know that there's one. I don't know if they've cracked down on it. It used to be a very popular spot. Then it turned into, let's just say, a nude gathering spot for a while. And then that was found out and it was sort of cracked down upon. I was not frequenting it at that point. Don't you look at me like that, Miss Jennifer.
And what about now?
We're talking now. Okay, so the next spot that we're going to talk about, and then I guess
do you frequent it? Do you frequent it now?
Yeah, no. I know what you're asking me, and that's why I'm moving on to the next.
What I meant was, do you frequent it now?
I've been. It is not the same as it was. And so, yeah, that is a really cool spot. And then there's also up in towards Woodstock, there's the Big Deep and Little Deep. Big Deep is very cool. It's really beautiful. And it's this big open watering hole. I actually like Little Deep because it's less known and it's a smaller area. And then there's also my favorite watering hole is up off of Platte Clove Road, up in Saugerties. Unfortunately, that place has gotten very popular. When I was in high school, it was like nobody knew about it. It was like, maybe a couple of other high school kids. I'd go with my friends from high school and nobody would be there. And it is absolutely gorgeous. I don't even know how deep it is. We've never made it to the bottom, but it is crystal clear bluish green water. It is absolutely, and there's these like rocks and cliffs and people jump off of the cliffs into the water. It's beautiful. So yeah, that is definitely a spot for me. And then the other one is not so secret, but I highly recommend checking out. Sometimes there's shows in there is Widow Jane Mine. The Widow Jane Mines in Rosendale.
Jane Mine?
Yeah, the Widow Jane Mines. They're like literally like caves. They were mines, and they have sometimes they have events. Yep, that's a very cool spot. Mm-hmm. And it's right by Joppenberg is what it's called, Joppenberg Mountain. So you can, it's really, really pretty. So that whole area of Rosendale, there's a lot to check out over there.
Thank you both for coming on Cidiot. I'm so lucky to have found your show. I'm sure a lot of my listeners are now looking you up right now, so you probably can feel the download action happen. And I'd be curious, like, let us know how else we can help in the future, and we'll stay in touch. And
Definitely.
I'm sure we'll have things to share and guests to share and people to share and stories to share among our shows.
Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thanks for listening to Cidiot, the sometimes award-winning show about moving to the Hudson Valley. I love these interconnections among Hudson Valley podcasts. Maybe we should do more of them and start our own network. If you have a show about the area and want to chat, reach out. I'm Matt Zucker, really enjoying Season 7. Lots more coming up, including firefighters and co-working. Plus, I might have some news myself. Join the newsletter at cidiot.com, and you can also rate and review the show in 2 clicks at the site or on Apple Podcasts, which I would really appreciate. It's really summer now, but at least we talked about swimming holes. Come visit.
Down in the valley, moved up from the city. It's a new way of living, and I'm trying to get used to it. 1 pot noodles, half an ounce of an idiot. Ordered a Manhattan, and they call me a Cidiot. At first I hurt my feelings, but it's kinda got a ring to it. When you move to the country, they can tell when you're new to it. I'm looking at a place, but I'm trying to keep fitting in. It takes too long to be a local, so for now I'm a Cidiot.